Peace. It's Bronzebird here with another video. Before I begin, like and subscribe. Thank you. So, per due our conversations that I've been having so far on this YouTube journey, I've been tackling a lot of issues, talking about how a lot of the technology out here is becoming more obvious and about how a lot of things is becoming overt. The last stream that I did, the last video I did was primarily talking about how Atlanta is taking their whole entire police facility serious. They're starting to build a police facility out there called the Cop City. Watch that when you get the chance. Today's video, I really want to talk about New York, not to rep the city itself, but to see like when it comes to a state like New York, it seems to permeate a lot of decisions that happen around the country. So a lot of things like gun law, which is starting to become serious. I know just July 4th just passed and they just had the whole entire shooting that happened out there on July 4th and how there's been all this record high crime, especially in inner cities. And it made me think about movie The Joker for some reason. I have no idea. But then all these school shootings that's happening, and it made me think about why are these kids probably being used as Manchurian candidates? Maybe, maybe not. I have no idea, right? And so when I started looking at a lot of these videos, a lot of this like news that was coming out, I thought to myself, no wonder a lot of this stuff is going on because as the world turns, the more your rights is going to be stripped away from you, right? And so I was looking at this article today with New York, them taking this whole entire idea about how they want to restrict the gun law license and, do all these different things to make it harder for people to own guns in New York State. Understanding how New York is a very progressive liberal state. It is itself. I'm not just talking about the city, I'm talking about the state. So their whole entire day on guns, it's hard to get a permit. It's hard to get a gun license, and my thing about it is the more stuff out here that they're requiring for you to have a gun, it's taking away your rights and it's taking away your freedom. Even though I believe when it comes to America, we all must understand that America is not home of the free, home of the brave. It's not. It's all an illusion or delusion, whatever you call it. And so a lot of people believe you live in a land of the free. Where? This is like probably one of the most craziest countries when it comes to restrictions. You understand? So I just wanted to give my take on what is it that I thought about this whole entire upcoming thing and share my thought process with you guys. So Pete. So all the way up here, it says from the bill itself, New York approves gun law requiring buyers to provide social media handles. The law struck down by the Supreme Court stated that gun owners would have to demonstrate proper cause to receive a concealed carry license. And I'll give my decision a little bit later, but them sitting up there having a toggle on your social media handles, it's like basically they're able to watch you. Now, there's a lot of different ways I can go with this conversation, first off, because of how, unfortunately, people have used social media as a soapbox for them to talk about threatening to kill someone or, do all these different things where, they're putting their business out on Front Street through social media, relying themselves on trouble. And, conversations I have with people in real life, they'll sit up there and say, because, the hip hop police and because we black and, da-da-da, this, that, and the third. But I mean, moreover, like just on social media, people need to be careful what they put online in the first place. Because too many times people tell on themselves and they talk too much. So you're letting people know your information anyway. The more you talk and the more you sit up there and use social media as your best friend, as your family, and thinking that the friends or followers, subscribers you have on social media is your family to go ahead and talk to. It's not how it works. New York Democratic Governor Kathy Hochul signed a new gun control bill Friday after the Supreme Court ruled last week that the state's rules that make it difficult for residents to obtain a concealed carry permit were unconstitutional. The latest legislation was signed into law shortly after New York's Democratic-controlled legislature passed the proposal. Hochul had called the legislature back to Albany on Thursday for an extraordinary session to work on the bill in response to the High Court's decision. This is also something they have worked on. This is not related, but you see the measures that they're taking in New York with a lot of these laws out here that's having people lose their freedom, lose their upholding the whole entire amendment rights that people have. You know what I mean? The Second Amendment, especially the video that I did, or the Brownstone Power I did about how they was going to sign a Senate bill on trying to control on what rappers can say and say what they cannot say. So I remember doing a video on that. And there's a couple other things that I saw on there, and it was like tracking people's social media. And then of course now it gets crazy where privacy is not privacy anymore. Because take for instance in New York, how they're trying to install all these different cameras on a train and say that, you know, we need to monitor the system and this, that, and third. Everything is starting to become into a surveillance state for real. It already is a surveillance state, but just the fact of the matter, it's becoming more aggressive. The law struck down by the Supreme Court stated that gun owners would have to demonstrate proper cause to receive a concealed carry license. And all that means is just controlling where you at, controlling what you say, controlling exactly how, monitoring your activity on social media if they haven't already, put more angst on it because you have a gun and you have the ability to kill someone. So that's the probable cause that they want to use when bringing up this type of argument when it comes to it, in my opinion. The new law will require people trying to purchase a handgun license to hand over a list of social media accounts they have maintained over the last 3 years so officials can verify their character and conduct. Well, have a control on you. According to the measure, applicants must prove they have the essential character, temperament, and judgment necessary to be entrusted with a weapon and to use it only in a manner that does not endanger oneself or and others. Sometimes they're telegraphing their intent to cause harm to others, Hochul said at a news conference, in which I won't disagree with that. I will definitely say Hochul does have something there. She is absolutely right when it comes to that. And it's like I said earlier, certain people use social media as their soapbox, as their newfound family, their virtual family. They look at social media as being their answers to everything, especially when they're upset, angry, have a problem with someone on a job or problems with someone in the household. It's like I'm watching a whole entire reality show every single time I go on social media because people do not know how to be emotionally mature and take things off of social media instead of airing everything out. Individuals applying for a license to carry a handgun will also be required to provide 4 character references and take 16 hours of gun safety training and 2 hours of shooting practice at a range. They will be subject to periodic background checks and will have to turn over social media accounts and contact information for adults living in their household. Wow, this is really crazy. Licenses will have to be renewed every 3 years and an appeals process will be established in law notes. Under the law, concealed weapons will be prohibited from a number of areas, including Times Square, subways, buses, bars, government buildings, churches, schools, libraries, playgrounds, parks, and homeless shelters. Firearms will be barred from private establishments unless business owners explicitly state that they are allowed. Businesses must post a sign granting permission to arm patrons. In many other states, businesses that do not permit guns typically have to post signs indicating that firearms are not allowed. Friday's bill altered a recently passed law that banned the sale of certain bulletproof vests, although that legislation had failed to cover the type of protection worn by the 18-year-old gunman who fatally shot 10 people at a supermarket in Buffalo in May. And there's a lot of things that go into that whole entire thing that happened with the guy in Buffalo, or what happened with the guy that happened at Highland Park, I believe, that happened in Chicago. I mean, a lot of people started looking at both sides of the angle, where they started looking at the whole entire thing where the so-called black man was shot by cops about 50 to 70 times. And then what happened with the armed shooter, who happened to be a so-called white kid, decided to take his time and shoot people out during the July 4th festivities. And I mean, look, listen, this is not for me to make fun of the issues. This is not for me to sit up there and say, oh, you know, this is just another play. But, you know, usually a lot of this stuff happens, in which I believe someone like Candace Owens said this. A lot of the events happen before, you know, the whole entire election season comes in, or when the election season comes around, midterms. Think about it. Every single time, there's always these big things that happen, right? Because what's the last thing that happened in 2020 or 2021? The whole thing with George Floyd. And then you started getting all these this whole entire slew of, you know, shooting incidents and all these different things out there. I'm not saying for people not to pay attention, but I will tell you, at the end of the day, it does seem like there is a simulation that happens. And unfortunately for so-called black people or so-called black men, we wind up being on the not receiving end. We wind up being on the end where, you know, a lot of our brothers get shot to death. You understand? And so, you know, you see that, and, you know, a lot of people make their judgment calls, but I definitely do see something is rotten. Something is definitely washing away in the water. It's a little weird. The measure is expected to face legal challenges from gun right advocates who say the law still infringes on citizens' Second Amendment rights. Now we're going to let the pizzeria owner decide whether or not I can express my constitutional right. GOP State Senator Andrew Lanza said, "This is a disgrace. See you in the courts. The new firearm law will take effect on September 1st. And I mean, so a lot of people's decision. They may say, hey, look, listen, let's move out of New York State and move to a place where we can go ahead and practice our amendment rights. But how I see it is, I just think that places like New York or California will permeate, their decisions will permeate the whole entire country. You know what I'm saying? Especially the Bible Belt states down south. And as you're starting to see now, a lot of states like Texas is starting to turn blue. A lot of districts went from red to blue. You understand? And then places like Florida, how they're sitting up there putting more pressure on someone like DeSantis as something as juvenile or something as minute as don't say gay bill and this, that, and the third. All this is starting to make sense. And I hope a lot of y'all guys are starting to see exactly what's going on here. That a lot of the stuff that's going on in the country is really about making sure you are controlled by the government, that you are controlled regardless as you move into the NWO. Just see that. And I'm not going to say that I'm perfect in this too. I just make this whole entire YouTube videos to share my awareness on things that I see, to give my perspective. It doesn't mean that I'll automatically know everything or do everything by the book or do everything by what is it that I see out there and taking precautions. I got to learn myself. So should you. Peace.